Good morning students, welcome to VAYU News Analysis of July 13, 2026. Now let's get into today's news articles. So the first article what we are going to see in today's session is, it is an article regarding the courts. So where it is mentioning about the structural problems that are present in the judiciary, Indian judiciary. So before going to understand this particular article, you need to have basic knowledge on some of the constitutional articles related to Indian judiciary, and also you need to be well aware of provisions and also powers of Supreme Court, High Court and everything. Now, this article is mainly focusing about the structural problems faced by Indian judiciary. So this article is telling about structural problems faced by Indian judiciary. So yes, this faced by Indian judiciary. Here the problem that is mentioned over here is mainly about the judicial holidays. Judicial holidays, where it is mentioning about the number of working days of Indian judiciary. So before understanding into this particular problem, we need to have basic knowledge on what are the main problems that are faced by the Indian judiciary. While coming to the problems faced by Indian judiciary, we have some of the important and few problems. Those are nothing but pending cases. Pending cases. Around 5.39 crore pending cases are present over in Indian courts. So the pending cases is one of the major issue, and one more issue along with this which we can connect the dots is that under trials. Say there are so many number of prisoners who are taking the punishment in the prison still in their under trials. This is the second problem. And along with this, there are other problems that are faced by Indian judiciary. The first and foremost problem is lack of inclusion. Lack of inclusion, where there are low or less amount of female judges, where the ratio of female judges is not in balancing with respect to male judges, and also the number of women judges who reach to highest position and promotion are very low. This is one of the another important problem. And along with this, there are other problems that are mentioned over here is about the judges to people ratio. In India, around 21 judges are present for a million population, whereas the world average is around 50 judges with respect to a million population. So this is also one more issue that is mainly concerning the Indian judiciary. Now, along with these problems, there are other problems also, that is lack of proper integration with technology. Lack of proper integration with technology. Why? Because if technology has been utilized efficiently with respect to judiciary, there is a possibility in reduction of under trials. There is a possibility of reduction in under trials, and also improve the efficiency of the judiciary. Now, these are the main problems, and here the main problem what have been given in this particular article is that the judicial break, where it is working, mainly the courts are working around on an average of 180 days in an year. So this concept of having summer break. This concept of having a summer break has the origins from the British rule. Because of the high heat that where Britishers are not able to face, they have this concept of summer break where there will be holiday for judiciary, and in that holidays also only 3 to 4 benches will work despite all the things. So this is what the main problem that have been given in this particular article about the issue of judicial break. Okay, now because of having all these problems, the efficiency of judiciary is on not up to the mark. So in order to reduce it, we need to see proper measures. Now let's have a look over that. We need to mention about the solutions. So what are the solutions that we can take? The first and foremost thing is that in order to solve the issue of pending cases with respect to judiciary, so in order to solve this issue of pending cases, one must integrate and one must start. What happens is that according to Article 312, All India Judicial Service, so where induction of more number of judges, especially at the lower courts level, will be inducted, this will increase the efficiency of the courts. This will increase the efficiency of the courts. This is the first and foremost solution about All India Judicial Service according to Article 312. And there are some other solutions where reducing the conditions for promotion of the female judges, women judges. So the thing is that we need to create proper role models for encouraging more number of women to work in the judiciary. This is the second solution. And along with that, we need to have integration with respect to technology. Integration of judiciary with the latest technology must be done. Now, this can be happened where we need to add some of the examples like e-courts mission project, e-courts mission project, and also artificial intelligence models like SUAS and SUPAS. So where this you need to be done. You need to be study in detail about this integration with respect to technology. And now one of the most efficient issue what we need to do is that separation of executive from judiciary according to Article 50 of DPSP. Article 50 of DPSP. So this is how some of the solutions, how we need to improve the efficiency of Indian judiciary. Still, there are some of the issues with respect to collegium system, where appointments are getting late. So these issues also must be solved in order to increase the transparency in the working of the judiciary, So this is what we need to understand from this particular article. And while coming to this article where it is mentioning about the break, where it is mentioning about the judicial break, even though the judicial break is being given, the judges are not sitting idle. They have to do lot of research and lot of background work in order to deal effectively in their upcoming cases. So this break is a must and should. But in order to not to have reduced the efficiency, what we need to do is that the breaks must be given in a staged manner. Okay, so staged manner breaks will be given. This is the main solution for this particular problem, where judges have proper leisure time in order to do research and the background work, and at the same time efficiency of the working of judges will be improved. So this is what you need to be understand from this particular article regarding issues. What are the major issues faced by Indian judiciary, and also you can understand about what are the solutions for it, where here you have mentioned about the problem of judicial break. Now, let's see in the prelims and the mains point of view. So, in the prelims and mains point of view, what you need to study is that you need to have basic knowledge on the e-courts mission project, where you need to understand its objective. Along with that, you need to have basic knowledge on some of the artificial intelligence models and some of the translation models that are being used in judiciary. Along with that, you need to have aware of provisions of the Mediation Act. Okay, so these are the things which are important for the prelims point of view. And along with that, you need to have conceptual clarity on some of the constitutional articles. Some of the constitutional articles related to judiciary. With respect to especially Supreme Court and the High Court. This is what you need to be understand in the prelims point of view. And in the mains point of view, you need to be aware of issues faced by judiciary and what are the possible solutions in order to avoid, and also steps to improve. By increasing the efficiency of the judiciary must be learnt. So this is what you need to be understand from this article in the prelims and the mains point of view, especially with respect to judiciary. Now let's get into the next article. See, here this article is having continuation, where this is mentioning about another problem where we have discussed about poor participation of women or poor presence of women in the judiciary, and this is mentioning about the particular thing called providing basic facilities, especially for women advocates, like taking care of the child care, okay, like child care facilities and also washroom facilities, etc. All these things must be provided. So this is the issue, one more issue that is concerning about the women and the solution that is being provided in this particular article. Okay, so this is the continuation of the previous article, where one more issue has been highlighted over here. Now let's get into next article. So the next article here is mentioning about import of oil. India is importing oil mainly from Russia. So India is importing oil mainly from the Russia. So this article is mentioning about the efficiency of India and also future challenges that are faced by India and that are need to be faced by India with respect to import of oil. 2 days back, we have seen about an article where we have priced about the efficiency and also how India has successfully faced the situation of the global crisis, like a closing of the Strait of Hormuz. There we have mentioned about the first and foremost factor for success of India and India's resilience is that main factor is that diversifying its sources beyond with respect to only one country. We are diversifying its sources. Now here the main issue that has been highlighted is that India almost imports around 90%, 87 to 90% of oil from other countries. Initially, there is more import of oil from the Gulf countries, and because of the change in this, it has been shifted to importing from the Russia. Now, here comes the issue. Where excessively depending on one single country. Excessively depending on one single country is an issue. Why? Because in case of any kind of secondary sanctions, imposed by that particular country will always leads to an issue where India needs to solve its problem of the crisis in future and need to have proper solutions in order to face this particular crisis. Now, let's see what are the solutions to this problem instead of depending upon the one particular country for import of the oil. Now, the major solutions for this problem include, instead of this, we need to develop pacts and also diversify the sources. And most important thing is that we need to develop strategic petroleum reserves. We need to develop strategic petroleum reserves, and also we need to have focus upon other fuels like ethanol, and along with that increasing of the renewable energy usage and also production. So these are the possible solutions in order to avoid depend excessively on one particular major country. So this is what you need to understand from this particular article. Now let's see in the prelims and the mains point of view. Now in the prelims point of view, what you need to have is that basic knowledge on 3 strategic petroleum reserves in phase 1 like Visakhapatnam, Paderu and Mangalore. And along with this, you also need to have basic knowledge on other strategic petroleum reserves along with these 3. So this is what you need to understand from this particular article, and also need to have knowledge on importing bases, like from which countries India is importing its oil, petroleum reserves, etc. And in the mains point of view, you need to have knowledge about journey of India, especially in this global crisis, and also what are the steps to be taken by India in order to avoid these type of crisis mostly in the upcoming days. Now this is what you need to understand from this particular article in the prelims and mains point of view especially. Now let's get into next article. So the next article for today is mentioning about the ethanol. So it is mentioning about the ethanol, where before going to understand this particular article, we need to have some of the basic knowledge. Actually, there are 4 generations of ethanol. Means in the first, what happened is that the ethanol that is produced from the food crops. The ethanol that is produced from the food crops like sugarcane, okay, millets, rice, grains. These are the first generation ethanol, and second generation ethanol is produced from non-food crops. Whereas third generation of ethanol is produced from microorganisms like algae. And fourth generation of ethanol is produced from genetically modified methods. So these are the 4 generations of production of the ethanol. This is the basic knowledge where you need to have. Now, this is also important for prelims and mains point of view. Now, this article is mainly focusing upon the sources. It's focusing upon the sources of production of ethanol. Here it has mentioned about excessive usage of sugarcane for production of ethanol, where sugarcane needs more water. It is highly water intensive crop, and also it needs more fertilizer inputs. So this is the first crop that is being used for the production of the ethanol, and the second source where ethanol can be produced is from maize, where maize is less water intensive when compared to sugarcane, but it requires significant amount of fertilizers for its production. And the third source is by using the sorghum. Here, this is also important source where the amount of water and fertilizers used are less when compared to above. And finally, one more source is the damaged food grains. Damaged food grains. These are the main sources of the production of the ethanol. Now, here comes the issues. Now, the article here is mentioning about some of the issues that are being faced in the production of the ethanol. The first and foremost thing is that since sugarcane is a food crop, it is being diversed into cash crop because of the production and usage of the ethanol. So, this diversification of sugarcane into for production of ethanol crop is one of the major issue that has been mentioned here. And one more issue is that since here damaged food grains are also acting as one of the source for production of the ethanol, so the buffer stock which are kept with the government, FCI especially in times of the crisis, is also one of the issue. And along with that, ethanol has low energy density. Ethanol has low energy density when compared to others. So these are the main issues that are concerning regarding the production of the ethanol. Now, we need to have basic knowledge on the solutions, like what solutions are used in order to solve this particular issue. One of the most important issue is that we are depending exclusively on the first generation of ethanol production and try to diversify to produce it from third generation ethanol, fourth generation ethanol, along with the second generation ethanol, which does not depends upon the food crops where there is no issue of the food. Now, one more important thing is that instead of depending solely on the ethanol, we need to diversify the sources to renewable energy. We need to diversify the sources to renewable energy. So, these are the possible solutions in order to solve this particular problem. So, you need to understand about the 4 generations of the ethanol along with the sources of the ethanol production and the issues that are being faced, and also the solutions you need to have basic knowledge upon. Now, let's see the article in the prelims and the mains point of view. Now, in the prelims and the mains point of view, this article is very important to have basic understanding. So, the first and foremost thing is that in the prelims point of view, what you need to understand is that you need to have basic knowledge on what are the 4 generations of the ethanol, and also you need to be aware of ethanol blending program and its targets. Where India has already achieved the blending of 20% of ethanol. Initial target is 2030, where it has achieved by 2025 itself. Now, you need to have basic knowledge on the what is the target for 2030. So, this ethanol blending program is the one of the major thing where you need to study and focus upon. And in the mains point of view, you need to have basic knowledge on issues that are being faced in the production of the ethanol, and also what are the possible solutions, and also how we can diversify the source of production of ethanol. So, this is what you need to understand from this article, especially in the prelims and the mains point of view. Okay. So, this is about this particular article. Now, let's get into next article. So, the next article here is mentioning about the education system of India, where it is mentioning about the entrance scores. So the recent reform that has been taken is that instead of focusing upon the entry level scores, let's say for example the score that is being scored in, let's say, JEE exam and also GATE score, or the score of the entrance test of the college or universities, this should have less importance with respect to placements in college, because our National Education Policy 2020, it focuses upon the reduction of exam-oriented approach and increasing more on the knowledge and research-based approach. So this is what being identified in this particular article. Why? Because solely having proper exam score does not determine the efficiency of a student or a person, especially in his working in the particular organization. This requires deep analysis and understanding, requires coding abilities and also proper decision taking abilities along with the problem solving skills. So all these concepts needs more clarity on the subject plus his working skills, and this is not reflected in the entry level scores. So this is what being identified in this particular article. Now here you may link one more thing here. You may link the concept of the structural unemployment here, where the people who are working, they are not able to have, means they do not have proper skills which is required by the particular organization. So like these are the main hurdles for the development of the country like India. So you can link this concept over here, where excessive focus on the exam-oriented approach instead of having the practical skills is an issue. So this is what is being given and highlighted in this particular article, because instead of having these entrance level skills, practical skills and managing skills plays very important role in the placements and also working of an organization, because some of the skills like team building skills, negotiation skills, communication skills, these are not reflected entirely on the scores of the entrance level. So this is what is being given in this particular article. Now let's get into next article. Now, so the next article here, it is mentioning about the helium imports, where this article is focusing upon the increase of import of helium by China. So here we need to have basic knowledge. Here it is mentioning that China consists of only 1.6% of the world's helium. So it produces only 1.6% of the world helium, and it imports greater than 80% of the helium. And the major, before going to understand this, you need to have the basic knowledge on like which countries are top producers of the helium. So the countries like USA, Qatar, Canada and Russia are the top. Canada and Russia are the top producers of these particular helium. Now, the thing is that because of the issue of the global crisis and blockage of the Strait of Hormuz, the cost of imports and the cost of logistics, especially with respect to supply chain, has increased, where the shortage of helium is in the news. Because in order to preserve the China's semiconductor industry, especially production of the chips, this helium gas is a must and should. This is being given in this particular article, where import of China on other countries like USA and Russia, especially for the import of the helium, is being given in this particular article. Now, this article also has mentioned about the sources, like how helium is being extracted. Now, helium is present inside the Earth's crust. Helium is present inside the Earth's crust, where helium is being extracted, and after a few years of processing, this has been converted into natural gas, where it is extracted as a natural gas, where helium becomes part of the particular natural gas. And along with this, helium can also be produced from the LNG plants. Helium can also be produced from the LNG plants. So this is the main thing that has been highlighted in this particular article, like import dependency of the China on especially countries like Russia, USA, etc. Now, you can also link it with the concept of the GS3, mentioning about the trade wars, like the possibility of having the trade wars with respect to excessive dependence by China. Now, let's see this particular article in the prelims and the mains point of view. In the prelims point of view, you need to have basic knowledge on the properties of the helium. The first and foremost thing is that it is the second lightest element. It is the second lightest element after hydrogen. So, hydrogen is the first lightest element in the periodic table, and the second lightest element is the helium. And you need to be aware, is this helium is a renewable or non-renewable source of energy, because helium is non-renewable source of energy, unlike the renewable sources of energy like sunlight, etc. So these are the prelims articles, and especially you need to be aware of methods of production of the helium, like especially what are the sources of production of helium. You need to have proper knowledge upon. Now, in the mains point of view, what you need to understand is that excessive, countries which are having excessive reserves of the helium, and especially the impact of the global crisis, like dependence upon the helium, and which is causing an impact on the chips industry and semiconductor industry. And the semiconductor industry is being, you need to understand. Now, this is from the China's perspective, and from the India's perspective, India almost imports 100% of the helium from other countries like Russia, Qatar. Here, China at least having 80% imports, 80% dependence on the imports, but India is roughly having around 100% of its import of the helium from the other countries. So now this is the thing main what you need to have knowledge about. Now you can link with the GS3, as I already told you, where you can link with the trade wars happening between the other countries, and also link with the bilateral relationships between the other countries. So this is what you need to understand from this particular article in the prelims and the mains point of view. Now let's get into next article. So the next article for today is mentioning about the El Nino and the challenges that it is giving, and the states which are facing this particular challenge. Here, before going to understand, we need to have proper knowledge on what is El Nino. El Nino is nothing but the warm phase where the water over the eastern and central Pacific Ocean gets warm, where this is having a negative impact on the monsoon of India, and along with that, it also have negative impact on the countries like Australia and other Southeast Asian countries, but there exists positive impact on some of the countries. Let's say, for example, countries especially near the South America like Peru, Chile, etc. So this is what you need to understand in the prelims point of view, like what is El Nino, where warming of the ocean at the eastern and the central Pacific happens. So this is what you need to be understand. Now here, this El Nino is not a sole effect, it is having the cyclic effect. It is having the cyclic effect where heat waves are the major issue that is being faced by many states because of the El Nino. So this is what you need to understand from this particular article. Now in the prelims point of view, in the prelims point of view and in the mains point of view, you need to have a basic knowledge. In the prelims point of view, you need to understand about the El Nino and its phenomenon you need to have to study, and the cyclic effects like heat waves. Now in the mains point of view, you need to have impact of the El Nino on monsoon and direct impact on the agriculture of India, and also you can link with the disasters, whereas you can link with the GS3 disaster management. So this is what you need to understand from this particular article, especially in the prelims and the mains point of view, and the conceptual clarity that you need to have about. Okay, so these are the articles that we have seen for today's newspaper analysis, and we'll come with few more articles in the tomorrow's class. If you like this video, please like, share, comment and subscribe to VAYU Academy. Thank you.